It finally happened. Stephanie Jenkins, the TikTok mom many have criticized for years, sat in her car, tired, drained, and defeated. And for the first time in a long time, she admitted it. Not just things were bad, but that she and her 5 children are homeless. And that wasn't even the most heartbreaking part. Because in this video, Stephanie didn't just rant, she cracked. This wasn't another delusional live stream defending Drew or glamorizing the chaos. This time, there was a tingle of reality in her voice, a sprinkle of honesty. You could hear it in her sigh. You could see it in her eyes. That heavy, exhausted gaze of a mother carrying way too much and still pretending like she was okay. But how did we get here? And why are so many people saying this moment, this rant, was just another performance? Let's take a look. How we got here. The fall, the denial, the exploitation. Stephanie filmed the video from her car. Her only quiet space away from 5 restless kids crammed into a motel room. It was the kind of chaotic environment most mothers would try to shield from the world. But for Stephanie, it was content. She began the video by comparing herself to other content creators, suggesting that they play make-believe, while she, on the other hand, offers the real, raw. She claimed transparency, honesty, that she was giving people authentic life and filtered.
I get where other people are coming from, where they only want to share certain parts of their life online, where they're super particular, where it comes off almost kind of scripted. I get it to an extent, but I also feel like that just won't ever be me. I may get to a point where you feel like my content, it's not what we originally started following you for, because like my life is going to keep changing and I'm a normal person that changes, that shares those changes, if that makes sense. I think a lot of people are reading my aura and thinking like she's just mentally off and whack, which, I mean, who wouldn't be a little bit messed up? You know, I'm in a motel, homeless, with 5 kids, and doing everything I can to get out of this situation.
But that's where things took a turn. Because what she called transparency, others began to see as exploitation. Sharing it all slowly morphed into broadcasting her children's most vulnerable moments. She filmed tantrums and meltdowns. She used her kids as props to clap back at critics. She let them voice over petty rants aimed at online trolls. She then pulled them into conversations about her relationship and intimacy issues with Drew, topics no child should be involved in, let alone perform in. And viewers, who once rooted for her, who donated to help her rise from rock bottom, began to pull away. Not because she was struggling, but because she started performing the struggle. Because instead of trying to escape poverty, it looked like she was turning poverty into a business model. And what makes it more troubling is that this didn't feel accidental. It wasn't just poor judgment. It was intentional, strategic. Like she was testing just how far she could push the limits of oversharing, just how uncomfortable she could make people while still claiming authenticity. It stopped being about survival and started looking like a spectacle, turning trauma into content. Let's not forget one of the most disturbing moments, when commenters speculated her toddler might be on the autism spectrum, and instead of getting professional diagnosis, Stephanie leaned into it. She made multiple videos, brought sensory toys, and used the topic for engagement. Not for help, not for healing, for traction. This was when many supporters pulled the plug. Because if your child is struggling and you turn that into content series for views, what exactly are you prioritizing? Is it awareness or is it attention? And more importantly, where does that leave the child? Not as someone getting help, but as the centerpiece of a storyline they never asked to be in. What made it all worse was how public and repetitive it became. Stephanie didn't just mention her son's possible condition once. She started theming entire videos around it, captioning him as sensory seeking, showing off new lights and fidget toys, filming him in overstimulated states, and speaking over him in a tone that made followers feel like he had become a character more than a child. There was no evidence of a specialist visit, no real-time intervention, just video after video that centered on diagnosis she never confirmed, but very much capitalized on. And all of this was playing out against the same backdrop, the same motel, the same complaints, the same children in the same unstable environment months later. Only now, the public had grown more skeptical. What had once seemed like a mother doing her best now felt like a mother doing the most, for clicks, not for change. This is a homeless situation now. For the first time, Stephanie stopped calling it a motel stay. She called it for what it really is, homelessness. And for a moment, the performative filter dropped. No more metaphors, no more excuses, just the raw truth. She and her 5 children don't have a home. That moment hit hard. Because for months, she danced around the severity of her reality, using words like in between or temporary. But this time, it looked like even she couldn't deny it anymore. She said she felt overstimulated, emotionally worn out, claimed she was doing all she could to get out of the situation.
And doing everything I can to get out of the situation. So we're stimulating on a daily. I don't have a full oven, and for somebody who loves to cook, like that's taking a little bit of myself and my person, like how I like to express myself, away from me. And you know, I want to make some biscuits when I want to. I want to make some cookies, a pie, whatever. And we'll get there. But I do think about people that I admire, people I look up to, even just other content creators, or like, I don't know, you see movie stars pop up on your algorithm, you think you don't pop up on theirs. I'll be thinking about, man, does that lady from Father the Bride see my crap? But then I think to myself, no offense, but these people play make-believe for a living. I'm just sharing the real, the raw, the ugly, the things that normal humans go through, and that people seem to be uncomfortable sharing for, I'm not sure what, but I'm not. And it's okay if you think that I sound crazy, or I come off as just cuckoo.
But then came the question that echoed in the minds of many viewers. What exactly is she doing? Because this is the same woman who willingly moved in with Drew, a man who had no job, no plan, no stability, and then chose to expand their family. Not once, but again. When their content went viral, when the donations flooded in and people believed this was their moment to break free, Drew quit his job. They spent the money, ignored rent, and got evicted. So now, Stephanie talks about effort, about doing everything she can. But when the man beside her refuses to contribute, how much progress can she really make? She's dragging along someone who isn't lifting even a fraction of the weight. Even the day-to-day parenting responsibilities fall solely on her. Drew doesn't manage conflict, he transfers it. If the kids are rowdy or difficult, he doesn't step in. He hands them off to Stephanie. He plays the role of a bystander, not a parent. And here's the hardest part to admit. Stephanie is exhausted because she's trying to carry an entire household on her back. But she's also the one who chose this load. This is the life she built by a series of unchecked decisions and ignored red flags. And now, she's not just facing the weight of homelessness. She's facing the weight of consequences, the repercussions, and the cycle that never ends. She says this is a rough patch in her life.
You feel me? I know myself. I know the person that I'm going towards. And I know that this is just a rough patch in my life, but I'm not going to just share it as butterflies and roses, because, and that's another thing, is like, if I would be glamorizing my current situation, like some people love to say, you wouldn't be seeing this mental up and down, because I would be hiding it. I would be denying it, but I'm not denying it. This has been a rough situation and a rough part of my life, okay? we're just gonna keep going and keep pushing because these kiddos deserve every bit of who I'm becoming. That healed version of me that I'm working towards, that I'm definitely not at, but working towards, and definitely more healed than I've ever been, but not as healed as I'm going to be.
But here's the truth. This isn't just about her. It's her children's only childhood. A fleeting, foundational period they will never get back. And while Stephanie is focusing on self-care routines, yoga stretches, skincare check-ins, and journaling her way toward a better self, her children are collecting memories that look nothing like healing. They are growing up with the smell of microwaved takeout, roaches scurrying across the motel doors, and anxiety of not knowing what the next day holds. That's not a rough patch, that's trauma in the making, wrapped in a YouTube thumbnail. And yes, Stephanie insists she's not glamorizing it. She says she's simply being real. But every time she tells her followers, this is what real people go through, it minimizes the sacrifices that countless struggling parents actually make. Parents who hustle silently, who cut corners for themselves so their children never feel the weight of instability. Real parents take night shifts. Real parents skip meals and do whatever it takes to protect their children from the very discomfort Stephanie now live streams. Let's not forget, Stephanie and Drew once admitted they didn't want to work their lives away and lose 10 years in the process. This was their logic of not pursuing full-time employment. But what they fail to grasp is that those 10 years they are trying to hold on to, those are the exact 10 years their kids needed structure, safety, sacrifice the most. Instead of saving a decade, they spent it. And their kids are the ones paying the emotional debt. She says she's tired, but still chooses Drew. Stephanie looked completely drained in the video, and honestly, anyone would be. But what makes it more frustrating is that she still chooses Drew, the man who drains her, who does nothing, who holds her back from building any kind of stable foundation. She says she's exhausted, but how can you say you're doing everything when you're still clinging to someone who adds nothing but stress to your life? At some point, exhaustion becomes a choice, and the longer she stays tethered to a partner who contributes so little, the more she seems like she's choosing to stay stuck. She even vented about not having a proper oven, how she misses cooking, baking, and how those moments once felt like expressions of who she really was. There was vulnerability in her voice, like she wasn't just talking about biscuits and pies, but about a version of herself she barely recognizes anymore. The kind of woman who dreamed of Sunday breakfasts, not surviving on reheated fast food. But you could hear it in her sigh. Even she didn't believe her own optimism anymore. It was as if she was trying to speak life into a future she no longer had the strength to chase. The fire she once had, that better days are coming energy, is gone. You can feel it in her tone, see it in her body language. Her hope has dulled into a routine, and that's the problem. Because nothing has changed in 4 months. Not her environment, not her decisions, not even her approach. She's still waiting on change instead of becoming the change. The final deflection. In typical fashion, Stephanie tried to compare herself to other creators again. She said she's brave for showing the messy, while others fake perfect lives. She framed herself as the truth teller in a world of filtered illusions, someone unafraid to show the chaos. But here's the truth. Most creators don't hide the struggle. They just choose not to exploit their children to showcase it. There is a difference between being vulnerable and being reckless, between documenting your pain and dragging your kids through it for digital applause. And while Stephanie claims she's showing the real side of motherhood, what she doesn't acknowledge is how curated that realness actually is. The camera is always rolling, but only when the emotions are high, the kids are in distress, or a meltdown is sure to trigger engagement. It's not vulnerability, it's manufacturing chaos under the label of authenticity. Other creators who quietly go through similar struggles without constantly filming their kids manage to protect their dignity and their children's well-being. And then, as a cherry on top, she shifted into the topic of weight loss rumors. She said she wasn't using anything, no pills, no tricks, and dismissed the speculation with a laugh. Claimed she didn't care what people thought and would continue being her authentic self. But even in that moment, it felt like another misdirection. A soft pivot away from the criticism she knew was coming. Once she hoped to bury under body image talk and for empowerment. It was a way to change the subject, to steer the audience's gaze from her crumbling home life to something that felt safer to discuss. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Authenticity isn't an excuse for irresponsibility, especially when kids are involved, especially when your version of keeping it real means putting minors on camera in moments of distress, instability, or manipulation. There is a fine line between being relatable and being reckless, and Stephanie crosses it far too often. And the damage isn't just reputational, it's generational. These videos don't disappear. One day, her children will grow up and see the internet's record of their pain. They won't see bravery, they will see betrayal, and that's the kind of truth no algorithm can fix. Will she ever really change? One thing is clear, Stephanie is at crossroads. She's overwhelmed, she's tired, and perhaps for the first time, she is beginning to publicly confront the consequences of her own decisions. But the real question isn't whether she's feeling the weight. It's whether she's finally ready to carry it with accountability. Will she finally let go of the toxicity that's been dragging her down, including Drew, who has added nothing but emotional, financial, and mental strain? Will she put her kids first, not in lip service or live stream monologues, but in real, tangible action that removes them from this cycle of online chaos and emotional instability? Or will this be another emotional dump, followed by another day of content creation, followed by another month in the same room with the same problems and no real plan? At this point, people are no longer looking for her words. They are looking for her actions. Because the apologies have been made, the breakdowns have been witnessed, the promises have been heard. What hasn't been seen is change. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe this is Stephanie's wake-up call? Her breaking point that finally leads to a breakthrough? Or is this just another carefully timed post wrapped in self-help language while her children quietly suffer off camera? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more updates on this story. Because one thing's for sure, this isn't the end. Not yet.